Thanks for tuning in to the EthnoCO podcast, where our motto is helping people, help plants, help people. Please check out the links below and donate to our GoFundMe and Patreon to support the show.
We want to bring you a podcast that is inspiring, exciting, and scholarly, and share a bit of our curiosity about plants, people, anthropology, botany, shamanism, native cultures, environmentalism, and adventures in ethnobotany. Enjoy the show. We open in the morning. It's 5:44 in the morning, and dawn is breaking over the Peruvian Andes. The first rays of sunlight reflect off of frozen pools of water. The outside air temperature is 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The altitude is 4,400 meters above sea level. That's almost 15,000 feet. But Cody, while in the same place, is in a completely different environment. He has recently risen and he's doing his morning checks. Everything's running smoothly. And while ice covers the ground outside and the air is frigid, inside, the air temperature hovers around 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Strawberries are ready for picking, eggs have been laid for breakfast, and fish are darting back and forth underneath. This is the Hatun greenhouse, the great greenhouse, a sort of cyclic biosphere that Cody has engineered using permaculture practices with an intention of helping the native people of the Andes improve their nutritional and financial situation. So my guest today is Cody de Witt, who lives in the Peruvian Andes. My co-host, as always, is Callum G. Reynolds, who lives in Australia. And I'm your host, Scott Light, and I split my time between the United States and Peru. This is the EthnoCO podcast 002 about the Great Greenhouse Project. So welcome, gentlemen. I'm very excited to talk to you, and thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks, Matt. Welcome, Cody. It's good to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Cody. So happy holidays to everybody. And yeah, we're glad you guys tuned in. So Cody knows everything about this project because he invented it and is the engineer of the project.
I'm a team builder. I really don't know anything other than people skills.
I know a lot about the project because I hang out with Cody literally almost every day when I'm in Peru. But Callum's coming in pretty fresh. He knows a lot about permaculture and organic farming and conservation. But I'm going to kind of let Callum ask the questions that's interested in him. But first, I'd like Cody to just sort of give a general introduction of himself. Cody, I know you're doing this greenhouse project, but also maybe tell us just very briefly about Language Heritage and Hike Club as well, if you want. Just introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay, so my name's Cody de Witt. I live in Cusco with my lovely wife, Denitza, which is from here. I've been in Cusco, I'm really bad about time, but I know it's more than 7 years. Let's say 7.5. And during that time, we found ourselves involved in NGO work, helping with charities, philanthropically. And we ended up starting our own about 8 to 10 months ago, named Peruvian Wisdom Project. And so previous to that, we had a company for profit called Peruvian Wisdom, where we teach languages, Language Heritage, expert SpanishLessons.com, both of those platforms where we work with not only English and Spanish and French and German, but also indigenous languages that are endangered throughout the Americas. Yeah, and last but not least, Hike Club. Hike Club is a free local hiking community that we love and spend a lot of time traipsing around these mountains looking for archaeological sites.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys need to a language teacher for Spanish or wanting to know some information about hiking in the Peruvian Andes. Also, if you guys see me doing this, I'm trying to get my camera to focus. I'm not telling you to stop or something.
Because this talk to the hand.
Yeah, no.
I know. High five.
But anyway, yeah, excellent. So greenhouses and permaculture, hike club, sort of archaeological and trekking adventures, and language heritage as well. So yeah, maybe if you tell us briefly as well about the greenhouse project, like what's just the general idea of it?
Okay, so it's a pretty eclectic resume that we just threw out there. So let me tie it all together. What it comes down to is we're very passionate about preserving and being involved and revitalizing and helping the culture from the countryside, right? So we could say indigenous culture. So that led us down the path of working with Quechua teachers, and then through hiking in these high altitude communities, we noticed this problem with malnutrition. So, Peru is a virtual breadbasket of biodiversity. We have the Amazon just a few hours over the mountain. We have, all of the quinoa and kiwicha, quinoa, potatoes, 3,000, varieties of potatoes. It seems like, how can we have a malnutrition or a problem with balanced diet? Well, nevertheless, it is a mystery that we started to investigate and get down to the source, right? Because a lot of times foreigners have ideas to solve or help domestic problems without fully diagnosing those problems. What were the contributing factors? How did this come about? We're so abundant with food, but we have children with anemia, with red hair and distended bellies in the high altitude. And so we started investigating, what is this? What is it all about? What's the contributing factors? How can we help? And how can we collaborate?
Sure.
Right? Most of all. So it all kind of comes together. Hiking, language, love for the people. I mean, me and my wife are godparents in 2 different communities. And so we're just passionate about helping economic development and nutrition and education in the countryside.
So I'm going to brag a lot on Cody in this podcast because I mean, if you notice, besides Callum, who's the co-host, he is our first guest. Cody has a deep, extensive understanding that I really can't think of another gringo foreigner that has a similar level of knowledge about the Andes and Andean culture, history, archaeology, and stuff. And that's why I believe so much in this project, is because I really do think Cody has dug deep into the issues of what really needs to be done, the nutritional deficiencies, and he's trying to do something that truly helps the people of the Andes. So we commend him for that. Callum, do you have any questions or comments?
It's just a great nexus point. I love it. It's this joining point between, you've done this organic exploration and discovery of maybe a problem and a solution from closely linked to the locals, which is amazing, to have that intimate connection to actually know what's going on the ground. And combining what I think sounds like a really, really exciting, fun, community-oriented, interesting solution. So I think I'm really excited to learn more about it. I know the basics, so we're going to learn about it together. And where did because the initial concept, getting to the nuts and bolts a little bit later if we want to, is basically a controlled environment to be able to grow a greater, richer diversity of food and maybe other things. You can explain all this soon. At some pretty inhospitable environments at times. High altitude, there's fluctuation in temperature, there's snow, there's probably blizzards and storms at times. High UV as well.
And we're in the ring of fire. We got earthquakes. The ring of fire. That includes the Andes.
So how did you first come across the concept, the engineering concept of it?
Okay, so I kind of hit on it in the very beginning. I don't like attention, right? I'm doing this because it's something we're involved in. It's a very real part of my life. But I know it's the goal these days to be an influencer, to be famous. But I know you guys, I love you guys, and I felt like it was a great opportunity to try to explain
Thanks for coming on.
What has really taken on a life of its own. Yeah. It's just, me and my wife were in the United States visiting my at the time, ill mother, who has since passed away. And we took a road trip, and just to take advantage of a lifetime of interest in permaculture and, farm to table, more locally sourced food, so that there's not this transportation. And, I really wanted to be more sustainable. As the world went into a time of instability, I really wanted to have food stability. And so on this road trip, we wove in some destinations. One being in Taos, New Mexico, the Earth ships. They're pretty famous. They use geothermal.
Yep.
They use a lot of. They use a system. It's an open system for water, but they're using the water 4 times: rainwater collection, domestic use, and then to the inside garden with a recollection system to flushing the toilets to the outside garden. So we learned a lot there. But the real tipping point was in Idaho when we met friends, new friends, that have these greenhouses that with snow up to here, because I lived in Idaho for 5 years when I was a child from the age of 5 to 10. So, I mean, the snow is this massive amounts, but inside they have orange trees. They have, figs. It's a virtual garden of Eden. And so, I saw the geothermal in Taos, New Mexico, but more in a desert situation where that 15 degrees ambient temperature of the earth was being used as air conditioning. So passively, with the skylight being opened, so the hot air escapes, it draws the air through a metal corrugated tube in the berm, the earth berm behind the house, and which cools it off. So it never clicked in my mind that this could also be used as a heating element.
Right.
I saw it as an air conditioning thing. But that 15 degrees, if you're in Dubai, it's an air conditioner.
Yep.
But if you're in the Andes, 4,000 or 5,000 meters and up in altitude, then it's a heater. That 15 degrees translates scratching 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that in Idaho, I said, wow, we could use this. This is the missing element I was already heading down this road of a greenhouse design, but there's a lot of greenhouses here. The government has thrown a lot of money at greenhouses, and they're open on the end, on the gables, with a green mesh. And so at night, all the hot air goes out, all the cold air comes in, and it really has no benefit at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw this, it was like a puzzle piece that snapped into place.
So starting at the bottom, we are using geothermal energy, the ambient temperature of the ground, to heat the greenhouses at night because they don't. The ground. How deep is it? It's 8 feet or.
So I guess from the onset, we should decide: do we want to use metric or?
I think we have to do. I think we have to do both.
Yeah, I think do what you're comfortable with, and
Yeah.
then we'll do our best to translate it on the spot.
Yeah.
So the actual greenhouse itself is 4 to 6 feet underground.
Okay.
The actual grow floor.
Yep.
Would be
It's
180 to 2 meters deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is because, the frost line. I've always heard all my life the frost line, the frost line, the frost line. But the thing is if you dig down, and it's at different depths at different places in the earth, right? If you're more in a frozen tundra or somewhere else. But here, 4 to 6 feet in depth, you're safely below the frost line.
Okay.
So you tap into that 15 degrees Celsius or 59, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Ambient temperature at all times, every moment, every hour. It never takes a break. The earth is just
Right.
It has that,
It's very accessible too. It's very shallow.
amazing. Yeah. It's not a lot of digging. We can come at this thing backwards because I think I mentioned kind of tongue in cheek in the beginning, and it's not, but it's actually sadly true. Most conversations about this take like 3 hours because there's a lot going on.
That's fine.
But I've just chosen to focus on the geothermal because without that, nothing else going on under the roof is possible. There is no biogas. There is no fish. There is no poultry. There is no trees.
So, if we may, we'll do our best to sum it up completely in the next 15 minutes. For the viewers that are tuned in now and want to get a quick synopsis of it, and then after that we can talk for the next 6 to 7 hours if we want to. But if we could do 15 or 20 minutes of like boom, 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 this layer, this layer, this layer.
Okay.
But yeah, we started with the geothermal, and you just mentioned a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, because under that, once you get the temperature under control, you can do anything you want to underneath that roof.
So touch on those other aspects for me briefly.
Okay. So the idea is for originally in the pilot, in the proof of concept, the first one that we're building for ourselves and for the community in which we chose to plant the first one. And we'll have and by the way, we're waiting for the rainy season to get done, because with the excavation, we got a little bit behind schedule and we don't want a swimming pool.
Sure.
So we're we're back to sharpening our pencil and working out bugs in the design.
Great.
But by April, May, we should be.
I'll be there.
Dirt. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm excited. So
ours give us a concept of
go ahead.
Visualization of what you think it's going to look at. And that's a great summary of people what does this look like? We can get to nuts and bolts just after that, I think. I wish we could share our screen. I don't know.
We can see you.
I have architectural drawings. We've been working with an engineer.
So why don't you send those to me?
I think you could.
I did.
Okay.
I sent them to Callum, I think, or in the chat.
Okay, so I will share those in the link in the description. So anybody that wants to see those schematics can click on those once we've finished up the video. And you can click on them and see what you're talking about.
Cool.
So
you want to try and just explain it? I think you could do a great job explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think if we go into all the elements underneath the roof, it can get a little confusing. What is he talking about? But let's come at this. I was thinking about this today. This hit me. I was in between two different tasks, and my mind just freed up for a moment and clarity. And I thought about, let's come at this whole subject in an interesting and different angle.
Okay.
Why do we not normally see honeybees over 5,000 meters in altitude? Why?
They can't warm up in the morning. Is that right?
They're too cold.
Well, I mean, if we boil it down to the two, I guess, questions, and I had this question, and I drilled down on it, and I researched it. Is it temperature or is it altitude?
Mm.
Is it like bees just don't like, too much barometric pressure, too much, I don't know. Why don't we see bees over 5,000 meters in altitude usually? And I'll say usually. So the answer is 100% temperature. They have recorded bees over 5,000 meters in altitude in the Himalayas. It's about temperature, 100%. And so these greenhouses, the only innovative thing about it, or I should say the principal innovative thing about it that makes everything else work, is we have found a way, naturally, passively, with environmentally friendly, right? Zero carbon footprint, a way to control the temperature. And that is with geothermal tubes. And most of the time when people think geothermal tubes, they're thinking a directional boring rig, drilling straight down, hitting, geothermal vents or volcanic or, hot springs. But that's not the case. If you get below the frost line and you go horizontally and you have fresh air coming in, traveling a specific distance based upon which material you're using, long enough for that air to heat up through just transfer. Let's imagine you have a metal tube, a corrugated metal tube like we've all seen going underneath roads. They come in huge sizes from this big to big enough for a car to drive through. Right? These drainage dishes, they are, load bearing. They can go under roads and handle the traffic. Okay. Well, that's essentially what the earth ships are using in Taos, New Mexico. In the back of the berm of the house, running at about, let's say 20 meters in distance, they have fresh air coming in. It runs through that distance, covered by dirt, and when it exits, it's just magically received that 15 degrees stable Celsius temperature.
Well,
59 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's not magical. It's people that know how to
transfer,
how to work with the earth in a positive sort of way. It's not something that's tremendously expensive. You have to add some inputs, but it's not tremendously expensive. It's not something that requires an insane amount of equipment, maybe a backhoe or shovels if you really wanted to get dirty and work hard.
Yeah.
But it's something very feasible for a lot of people around the planet that live in colder or even hotter areas. And I think that's one of the things that's so attractive to me about this idea is that people can really do it. It doesn't require some super expensive, technology that's just unattainable. So yeah, I really, really like that. Okay, so we got the base layer, the geothermal that is heating the greenhouse. Let's go up like middle or lower middle tier. What's the next thing?
Well, what we're seeing here in the Andes, and just in the few years, Callum, that you've been gone, when you come back, you will visually see the glaciers are smaller.
Gosh, it's terrible.
I mean, the whole world is, going through this global climate change, and being from Texas and not really being, I don't know, I didn't have an opinion about global warming. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not a climatologist, I'm not a geologist, I don't know. It's a controversial subject. People say, oh, it's cyclical, or it's man-made, or I don't know.
Super quick caveat. So the Gardeners of Eden concept and EthnoCO and this podcast, in my sort of opinion, I mean, I believe in climate change or global warming, but even if it didn't exist, our whole goal is to create a better planet for humans and other species, no matter what is going on. Yeah. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry, but I just want to add that.
Just being here, for the time that I've lived in Peru, I've seen these glaciers. I mean, the new thing is, if I say the word Vinicunca, a lot of people won't know what we're talking about. If I say Rainbow Mountain, they'll, oh yeah, well, it's a new discovery, Rainbow Mountain. Why is it a new discovery? Because it was covered with a glacier. And just, It is happening so fast. This year, we're in a drought. The rain is still 2 months behind. It's barely coming on now. And,
oh, wow.
Friends of ours in the countryside have lost all their seed crop. They lost all their potatoes, all their corn. They have to replant. And they've never seen it, the rain come this late. So with global warming, all of the agriculture is coming from this water that is glacier melt. Okay? Well, it dawned on me one day that when the rivers dry up, when the glaciers are gone, we will still have rain. Why will we still have rain? Because we're so close to the rain forest.
Yeah.
Our weather system, there's a saying here in Cusco about if Cristo Blanco is covered, then it's about the rain in the next hour and a half. So all of our rain comes from the direction of the rainforest. And so this model is built is using heavily rainwater collection. The first one is 14 meters wide by 20 meters long. And so that's a lot of roof. That's a lot of rainwater collection. And we're going to try to collect every drop that we can.
Okay.
Because I think as time goes on, it's going to be an important factor.
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And are these hard roofs? These are hard structures? What's the roof structure?
So I think what Scott hit upon earlier, that what our whole model has been built around being off the grid with local materials, easily to obtain, nothing too fancy pants, because, technology and getting parts and things breaking. No. We're trying to go, because some of these communities are only accessible by foot or mule.
Yep.
And so it will be digging by, as they say, pico and pala, like foot. So water and temperature, now that you have those two things, you have potential, right? Then you're just talking about composting, making your own nutrient-rich dirt, and then under that roof, you have a stable environment. You have your own source of water, so you're not susceptible to droughts. You have a stable temperature, and then it's like a blank canvas. You can put anything you want on it. In mine, we're doing biogas, which is methane, which is a source of energy. 1 kilo of refuse will run a gas stove for 2 hours. So we have a lot of breathing problems from cooking over firewood in the countryside.
Specifically,
so it's a source of energy.
Eucalyptus. Yep.
Mushrooms, honey from the honeybees, fruits and vegetables, and protein. And by protein, it's fish farming with poultry over, because the fertilizer that falls from the poultry into the fish farm creates a certain algae that the fish can eat. And so I want to experiment a lot with duckweed. Duckweed is considered a nuisance, but it is a prolific, and it grows so fast. So with vertical farming, we can produce about 50% of the diet of the poultry and the fish with duckweed, and then the rest goes into the biogas, right? The biodigester.
Right.
So it's basically just a closed loop circuit that is all under one roof, which has advantages and disadvantages, right? Sure. Sanitation is a real issue because you get one infestation of aphids or a mold in there. It could be devastating to everything. So yeah.
So
questions?
Yeah,
that's
this is one.
Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead, Kel.
We have duckweed in Australia, and it's I work in wetlands quite often, and it's extremely prolific. And it's it's probably traditionally used for a food crop or a fodder crop, livestock. So I think we're kind of, with science is bringing it to light, that we could be using this in a massive way, really. You see it reproduce every day. It's amazing.
It's considered such an invasive species, like it's a problem. And
in the U.S.
they were
as well.
fighting it in Lake Titicaca, but it's really aesthetically, because nature loves it, the fish love it, the birds love it. It's tourism and humans that don't like it.
It looks like slime.
Yeah.
It looks like a slimy.
It can be used.
All right, so we have done the bottom layer, the geothermal heating. We've done sort of the middle tier, which could have fish, and then on top of that, sort of chickens. Above that are the plants. But let's go, let's make sure we've covered top to bottom. We have 7 more minutes for the people that want to tune in for the short synopsis. So you got your fish, and the chickens are basically eating the inputs. There's going to probably have to be some inputs, maybe barley or cebada, wheat and barley, trigo, which are very, very cheap and easily grown in many parts of the Andes. So that's something that's easily obtainable. And the chickens are sort of feeding into the system of the fish. And then above that, sort of explain the system of sort of moving that water around and irrigating those plants and fertilizing those plants to take it up to the upper middle layer.
Okay. So for water circulation needs, there's really two things that we're utilizing. One is gravity. So the whole greenhouse is 4 to 6 feet down.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the roof at the surface level with rainwater collection, you already have a fall. So using that, going into the trough for the birds, falling at the end of the run into the fish farm, and from the fish farm, gravity drip lines going out to the grow floor, to the grow bed. So, we're using the water kind of inspired by the Earth ship, them using it 4 times. And so gravity is kind of the main driving force of the whole thing. Collecting it as high as possible off the roof and then bringing it down step by step by step by step.
Yeah.
Okay. Then in addition to that, the fish farms present an extra special challenge because you need aeration. Yes, you can go with low oxygenated fish like catfish and tilapia and carp, but they still need oxygen.
Sure.
And the way here, because thankfully we still have rivers that are running, all the fish farming here is really using a waterfall system. With using the water from the river and falling in and introducing that oxygen into the water.
Okay.
The other way would be, an aeration system or water pumps. And again, we're trying to make an off-the-grid model that is not using a lot of energy. And so we've run across this concept of ram pumps. And when I first started showing people and telling people, I had a very intelligent British friend. There was a ship captain, and he told me, there's no way. That is not possible. And at first glance, a ram pump just seems like it's too good to be true. But after, looking at probably upwards of 50 videos all over the world, ram pumps work. It's using the hammer effect, which plumbers will know. When you turn the tap off, you get this back pressure. All that water that's coming all of a sudden comes to a stop, and you get this the hammer effect.
It oscillates.
And it's bad. No, it's actually bad because, I mean, if you have weak or rusty pipes, I mean, that back pressure eventually, when you turn off the tap, all that water that's coming, it stops.
Okay.
Right? So you get this spike in pressure in the pipe. And again, just like the duckweed, this is considered something bad, something I have to overcome.
Right.
But the ram pump uses that, and I mean, they are pumping like 2 stories up into the air with this without electricity, without gas, without internal combustion, without anything. It's just utilizing that hammer phenomenon of the back pressure.
Yep.
And so that is the way that we want to circulate the water in the fish farm.
Yep.
And pump it up in the air and bring it back down.
Right.
Yeah, and let it just free fall.
And so that will irrigate the plants, or you're using that to oxygenate the water. Or
oxygenation of the fish farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as like the grow floor, it's just gravity drip lines from the fish farm. Right?
Gotcha.
So you're just bringing it out. Easy peasy. But this is to overcome a couple different things. The main thing, though, is oxygenating the water for the fish without having generators and water pumps and aeration machines and all of that.
Sure. And so chickens are an important part of the system as well for their fertilizer. Sort of, why are chickens because I've heard you talk a lot about chickens, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. In poultry in general, ducks and turkeys and chickens and quail, but it's a protein source. They just prolifically lay eggs every day. I mean, you have to do something with those eggs. And
which, to tie it back in, is a great source of protein. Someone's got a chicken close by.
Yep.
It's
Callum.
Yeah, I think it's Callum. Yeah.
We got a lot of native birds flying around.
That's good.
We actually do have chickens at my other house, and they really are this amazing autonomous resource. They do their own thing. They produce eggs every day. They sort themselves out. They're just an amazing resource to have. So
they're
they're really resilient.
Yeah. On the compost pile, they're aerators. I mean, you have a nice
scratching.
You think, you get this beautiful permanent.
Yep. And to tie it back in, you're adding protein and other vitamins. I'm sure I'm not an expert on what eggs contain into the Andean diet that is really needed.
Yeah, with brain development.
And
kids especially. I think and not to jump ahead of myself, but I mentioned in the very beginning that the anemia. Anemia is the government's throwing a lot of money at it, from vitamin supplements to like education about diet, a lot of things.
Lack of iron.
Yeah, lack of iron, anemia, something so simple. And, so I drilled down on that, investigating what changed in the Andean diet. Why would anemia now just be a modern problem that we didn't have, say, a couple decades ago? What's going on?
Yep.
And after attending some local permaculture workshops run by Peruvians that are from the countryside, it really came obvious that what has taken place is, due to the textile industry, with alpaca wool being at a high premium, there's only so much pasture land.
Okay.
These people are in these high altitude pasture lands. One of the girls from our NGO, she was an orphan. Her grandparents took her in, and where they lived, it was impossible to grow potatoes. Right? Usually we say, "Oh, they're so high, all they can grow is potatoes." Well, for pasture land, because if you have thousands of alpacas, you need an amazing amount of land for them to free range, right?
Sure.
To feed themselves and sustain themselves. And so the higher you go, there's a lot of free land, an abundance of free land, but there's not a lot of growth. There's not a lot of plant life. So you need even more land to sustain a flock or herd of alpaca. Well, if you're doing that, what are you going to choose? Alpacas, which you're not going to kill because they're more valuable for their wool, or llamas.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the alpacas are winning. So the campesinos in the high altitude are eating less and less meat.
Tell us
because
what
the animal is more valuable alive than on the plate.
So
That's where the anemia is coming from.
Campesinos just refers to the high Andean people for those that
Right,
don't.
Countryside.
Yeah.
Campo is country. Campesino is a person like myself that's country.
Right. Okay, so I think we've gotten to we've geothermal, fish, chickens. What sort of plants do you envision being in these greenhouses? And then maybe talk about the roof and the air control, humidity, temperature system a little bit. And then I think we will have done the very most basic version of the Hatun greenhouse system.
Okay, so just dovetailing on why anemia has come in. Anemia has come in because there's less and less meat in the diet, and these alpacas and the llamas have been crossbreeded a little bit. So before there was more camelid meat on the diet, and between 4,000 and 5,000 and plus, the meat is very iron rich. There's plants that they eat and they graze on that makes their meat very iron rich. Well, now they're not eating the meat. They're keeping the animal alive to sell the wool because there's only so much pasture land, and it's an economic decision. So with the greenhouse, with vertical on the gables, it's 6 meters tall. So there's a great opportunity for vertical farming.
Yes.
And with the ram pumps, to clean the water from the fish farms, we'll bring it all the way up, let it trickle down through all these trays, clean the water, bring it back into the fish farm. And it's liquid fertilizer for the vertical farming. So the vertical farming is intended for livestock. So the grow floor is fruits and vegetables, fruit-bearing trees and vegetables. But the vertical farming is more intended for livestock, so that at those high altitudes, they can grow, or I guess you could say pasture, more animals for their diet, so that they don't have to make this life or death decision. Okay, do I keep the alpaca so we can sell the wool so we can make textiles for exportation, or do we have children with anemia?
Right.
It's like,
sure.
That's not a position anybody should be put into.
Right, and it's not an easy.
Yeah, you're removing the issue of needing large swaths of land and growing in a more intense way, but hopefully a more biodiverse way, where there's great nutrition for the animals as well, climate control, high survival rates.
Yeah.
It's great.
So not just the animal production underneath.
And could be useful.
Yeah, so not just the animal production that's underneath the roof, but growing food for animals outside. So.
And is there any so the animals obviously are an amazing source for iron, as most red meat's known for. Is there any other foods that could be produced that are really high iron sources, just to increase that diversity?
So
which we can get to whenever.
I mean, there's plant-based iron sources, and then animal-based as well. You know, with ducks and you know, liver is a notorious source of liver. I mean, of iron, but there's really a really easy workaround to the anemia source, and it's just putting
cast iron
product on the market. Yeah, just cast iron in your water, and you have to change it out every decade or so.
When you boil a soup. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
So it's a pretty easy fix, but in general, you know, there's just a wealth of benefits that comes from having a balanced diet. You know, with brain development, with education, with kids, with you know, people having more strength. You know, the major symptom of anemia is being anemic, is not having energy. You know.
Yeah.
So.
And it's a hard environment, isn't it? You know, it's high altitude.
Very harsh.
It's lower oxygen, so you know, hemoglobin in the blood requires iron. It's all linked. So what happens when you're low on iron? You know, there's developmental issues. Living in a stressful environment, if you're constantly increasing your efficiency to grab onto as much oxygen as you can, that must not be good living with that anemia and having low energy and low developmental progress as well.
Yeah. So the first one, like I mentioned, is just a pilot. It's our it's our vision of what is possible and what can be done in this. If we want to, pull out the stops and courageously and boldly, attempt everything under one roof. But when it comes to theirs and their community, they can grow whatever they want to grow under that roof because you have a water source and you have a stable temperature. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a game changer.
Absolutely. So we're at 40 minutes now, and for those people that need the synopsis, if a 40 minutes is a synopsis, what have we missed? What haven't we covered? Because at the very end, I want to talk about sort of the philosophy of this whole thing, and then we can literally talk for the next 2 hours about all the questions and details. I feel like I've talked over Callum a little bit. I'm sorry, Callum.
No, you've been a great host. So we're building the structure of the whole thing.
So Cody, what have we missed? What else do we need to say about the structure itself before we talk about the philosophy of why this is so important? Or have we got it?
I think we pretty much have it. So you have rainwater collection, you have animals, a poultry and fish farm specifically working in a permaculture loop that is proven to work. That's an Asian thing. They have huge structures of poultry over fish farm ponds outside.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's a matter of just getting the ratio right between the amount of fertilizer that's entering into the fish farm. So in the beginning, we're doing lots of experiments, and I know this is not making a wrapping up statement. This is really complicating matters more. But we're documenting everything. So every kilo of everything that is produced out of that greenhouse, we're documenting and logging it so that we can make a real honest projection of budget for future ones.
Sure.
Say this greenhouse, we're trying to feed 20 people. Well, this is the amount of food that we need, so this is the size that we need, and this is the amount of fish and eggs and layers and fryers and get that all dialed in so we know how many people we're trying to feed, so we know how big of a structure we're building.
Right.
So with the first one, that's our learning curve. Acclimatizing seed banks. Thankfully, Scott had gifted me, for which over time I've added quite a bit to the seed bank, but acclimatizing seed banks. So the first generation, we may have a lot of crop failure, but for those that do survive, the next generation seed bank will be acclimatized. So that's an economic developing.
Which is a whole other 2-hour podcast.
I know.
Which will no doubt be in the future soon.
Absolutely. So yeah, almost at the 45-minute mark. So let's tie this all together. So let me say, so the reason why Cody was on here is because he's a good friend of mine. And I believe in what he's doing, and I believe he truly embodies. So this is the EthnoCO, or more specifically, the Gardeners of Eden podcast. And the Gardeners of Eden concept, which we talked about on the previous podcast, is people that are learning to work with the planet in a way that helps the planet and other species. And specifically, indigenous people, or specifically sustainability for the long-term future, the 100-year, the 1,000-year, the 10,000-year future, where we stop destroying this planet, we stop being, humanity stops being a cancer on this planet, and we start being something that is actively fixing the planet. And I really thought that Cody, with this project, has embodied those principles. He's learned so deeply about indigenous culture in the Andes. He didn't do that quickly. It took him quite a long time. He's learned deeply about the systems of permaculture and organic gardening that he wants to implement. And his main concern is basically the people, the indigenous people, and creating a better system, a more sustainable system. And I just really wanted to showcase that in this podcast. And so,
thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if you guys have anything to sort of add about, I feel like I'm missing something, but to add about the philosophy of the project, because I really think you're one of the people that embodies the Gardeners of Eden concept. So thank you for being on the show, and please, add whatever you want, and then we'll go to sort of a long-term Q&A.
Overtime.
Yeah, overtime. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Cody, you have a pretty amazing vision for this project, and a vision for your own life as well, and how it all ties together. Do you want to speak about where you want to take this and where you can see it going?
Yeah, I really want to see. So along with the greenhouse, we're building ourselves a small house for my wife and I because we need to be present, right? And we're also building a small dormitory so that leaders from these communities can come and see. Now, this is a whole nother subject, but there is a real reticence and a resistance to traditional methods, right? When other methods are introduced that could be beneficial, there's a resistance. Well, I've done it this way. My parents have done it this way. My grandparents have done it this way. We've always done it this way. And so, so I think the dormitory is going to be a real key for the future so that leaders from communities can come and they can stay and they can learn and we can give them our drawings and our plans and we can consult and everything's free and they can go and reproduce this and let it just take off like wildfire. And I hope that it does that. However, if they want to collaborate with us as a charity, that we can do a campaign, a donation campaign, raise the budget, build in collaboration with them, train them, and then turn it over, of course, and go on to the next one. So it's combining the two things that I love in life, which is construction. I've worked in construction all my life, and gardening. I mean, we lived off the grid for 5 years when I was a child. And we had cows and pigs and chickens. My mom made our clothes, and we did food preservation, made our own wine, our own butter, dehydrating, like canning. And so I think as the climate changes, as the world changes, and water becomes an issue, and food production becomes an issue, and as we've seen in the pandemic and also in political instability, the supply chain gets broken, right? This is a locally sourced, environmentally friendly, combating and working with global warming, which is a fact. And I just hope that it catches on. I want it to be it's not something, it's not, and as Scott said, it's not like this exclusive club, you need all this technology. No, we're digging trenches and we're burying pipe and we're building a greenhouse. They're familiar with fish farming, they're familiar with poultry, they're familiar with greenhouses, they're familiar with animal husbandry and with food and food preservation. The missing element, and I want to just make it very clear, is this geothermal. It is giving the inside of that greenhouse in a hermetically sealed environment of 15 degrees at all times. And with that, there's a lot of potential. You can do a lot of things.
Excellent.
It's great that there's a strong social dimension to it as well, that you're focusing on bringing in the requirement to have local people, to introduce local people to this and have them make their own decisions and to prove the concept. And then a lot of the rest of the work will be done.
It will.
Success, through the stories of success. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
That's great. It really is all tied in construction, a strong social change dimension to it, and sustainability, and it's all grounded in the foundation of what we all need, really. Food and resources, and warmth, shelter.
I know. Energy production, waste, sewage management.
We haven't even
methane and not firewood.
We haven't even touched. Hey man, don't knock firewood. No.
I love firewood. I just bought a bunch of it because we couldn't get propane.
We haven't even
touched. Now you have options: firewood and Cody's design.
We haven't even touched on the biogas. Well, very very briefly, but. Let me say, so as Cody was describing just a second ago what the project he's talking about and sort of the project expanding is I imagine all of these little gardens of Eden all over the Andes where people are able to pull out, citrus fruit or strawberries or all these things from these high altitude places that have never ever seen anything even close to this level of production. I mean, there were always the breadbasket in that there were the potatoes, but they had to be integrated with the lower parts of Peru. To be for people to live happily and have enough vitamins and nutrients to live. But anyway, I imagine all over the Andes, if this project expands, these little Gardens of Eden, over every mountain, every valley. And in addition to their traditional potato farming, corn farming down lower, wheat farming down lower, they have these sort of reservoirs of nutrients, and also that they can sell, that they can buy books for their children, that they can buy warm clothes with these sort of crops that they normally could not produce in these areas. So that's something I'm really, really excited about. We're going to wrap up the part 1 of this, and we're going to go into part 2. But before we do that, we are going to be making a GoFundMe for Cody. And I should have done it already. Not just for Cody, but for the project, because that's what Cody's really passionate about. And we're going to be making a GoFundMe, and there's going to be a link in the description of this video. So if you guys have watched this podcast, if you feel like it's something that's important, even just a very, very small amount of money can go really far, especially in Peru. So please donate. I know I'm going to. And I thank Cody so much for being here. I thank Callum. And as I wrap this up, we'll move into phase 2 of this video, and we can just talk more relaxed, and I'm not on the timer anymore like I was annoying you guys with. But anyway, thank you, Cody.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So.
And the beauty of continuing, having a future video cast as well is Cody could show us the progress of the whole project.
Yeah,
and
updates.
So for anyone interested in being part of it, contributing, then yeah, your donations or your help won't be forgotten. You'll be part of it. You'll get to see the progress. You'll see where those resources have gone.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point, Callum. At this point in the project, we haven't gone into any fundraising, right? We have received a one-time grant that has allowed us to get property and to build the first one. And beyond that, our own personal house or the dormitory, those are things we'll work on in the future. But I just felt really reticent to ask people to invest in architectural drawings. I think this is the day and age where it's like, don't tell me, show me. And so we really have that old school mentality that we want to carve it out, build it, blood, sweat, and tears, get it implemented and integrated and working in harmony, and get things dialed in, and then publish our results. And of course document all along the way. So this is a really good collaboration, because it's like getting to see the process, a sneak peek. But I say, in a year and a half from now, when everything is up and running, and we feel comfortable that this is the model that we're going to run with.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's going to be changes. I've never felt like I had to have all the answers. I just need to build a team of people that have the individual expertise. And so it's been a great adventure. Thanks for the collaboration.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Totally. No, it's Cody, you are a literal champion for this project. You're championing the concept, and you're going to turn it into reality. And
100%.
These innovations and changes, whatever it is, social changes, technological change, need people. They need a champion, and they need a success story, and then people follow that. And so you've put a lot of work into this, building teams, building concepts.
We see it a lot with the NGO work, with charities, foreign solutions to domestic problems. And we are trying to use our experience in those areas, things that work, things that don't work, and understanding how the culture works and how it takes a lot of water to turn a battleship around. And if you go to trying to teach farmers how to farm, it's like bringing sand to the beach. They don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
They want to see it. And so I think once it's up and running, and people can come and visit, and they can say, wow, you know what, this could really benefit us. And there's a sweat equity involved, because in some of those high mountain communities, there's no road access. We're not going to be able to get tractors and backhoes and machinery in there. So the collaboration is not only the community providing the land for their greenhouse, but digging it out. It's an excavation.
Yeah.
And so you're talking a lot of man hours. And, you know, we've seen NGOs build buildings, put plaques on there that these are the donors. And the minute they turn their back, it's just got cobwebs, right? It doesn't. So there has to be a transference of that vision and that passion from us to them, to where they say, we dug this with our own hands. We know this works. We've seen it. And we're now going to do it. And it needs that constant ownership, that management.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's a whole village, everybody points the fingers, well, you know, they're not investing as much as I am, and I'm working there more. So we want to start on a micro level, which is like extended families. And there's a real culture of repeating successes. So once, say there's 20 families in this village, and this one extended family has a greenhouse that is producing things that no one ever thought could be produced in that environment, it will be replicated just by force majeure.
And I think that's something that I find so great about your project, is that you want to pass on a vision to people, and you don't want to pass it on. I mean, you're very pragmatic. You have a good understanding of Peru, and you don't think you're gonna I'm gonna change the whole country, you know, immediately. No, you think I'm gonna pass this vision on to individual people that are gonna be excited about this and that are gonna help me realize this vision. And I think that's a much more intelligent way of going about it and making it happen. I think that's really important, and an intelligent way. I mean, people get these big ideas, and nothing ever comes of them. It's something that has to be a concept that can be implemented, not just like some pie in the sky dream. That practical. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And I think it's great that. Sorry, guys, I have cars coming by.
It's all right, man.
You get a lot of visitors.
Yeah, that's all right, man. No worries.
All right, I've just been muting it and then unmuting it. So
that's fine.
If you're doing everything you should be doing it, and that's connecting with locals, getting the pragmatic concepts up and running. And if you feel like, you know, I feel a bit awkward about asking for money or for support or anything, like, that's okay. That's very humble and honorable to be like that. I'm not. I'm happy to ask for resources and money for things like this, because money is great. Money gets stuff done. Money supports and facilitates for things, and it's not everything. Obviously, there's a strong social dimension of getting this stuff done. It's a community-led thing. But I often in Peru talk to locals about what would you know, if they're already undertaking something, what would you need? And quite often, sometimes it's nothing. They're like, we just need time and effort. Other times they say, it's like that cherry on top, like, oh, we would like a little bit of money just to pay for the resources that we're putting into it out of our own pocket. Mm-hmm. Very, very pragmatic approach, like literally, like equipment, tools, materials. Could you help us?
Transportation of materials, you know, because everything, every build is going to be a unique challenge. So if you have dirt road access, we can get backhoes and tractors in there, and you know. But if not, you imagine you're above the tree line, so you're not just locally sourcing eucalyptus or lumber. You're going to have to bring those poles in. We're trying to keep the cement and the concrete at the minimum usage, and especially, you know, dovetailing on the Earthship model, and if it's at where it's closer to a population area, there's always trash. There's an abundance of tires, and so there's abundance of bottles and cans. And so using recycling, it sounds like budget keeping measures, but it's really tapping into the big picture of cleaning up the environment, doing something in a harmonious, stable, sustainable way. We're not, you know, trucking in food. And I mentioned one of the girls in our NGO that lived with her grandparents, where it was so high they couldn't even grow potatoes, but they were pasturing animals. Guess what? They had to go a couple times a year with a whole wagon train of llamas down to the nearest village to bring food for the llamas and alpacas back up. So they weren't even able to meet the needs of pasturing those animals at that high altitude. They had to go use those same animals to bring their own food to supplement their diet. So harsh conditions, harsh conditions. And
very, very hardworking people, aren't they?
Absolutely.
They're survivors.
I want to apologize because I've been tonight's one of the coldest nights, record temperatures in North Carolina. So I've been moving some wood in, and I also feel like that I talked too much. So I'm kind of letting you guys have it. But yeah, Cody, amazing work, and let's keep it rolling as long as Callum has questions and Cody's. Keep it going.
Yeah. So I think something that we're really interested, Scott and I are really interested and have been for years in food security and seed security in particular in the Andes, inspired by Peru, actually. In our own lives, we continue that in our own countries, Australia and America. But Peru is such an amazing historic and current breadbasket. We have amazing foods to thank Peru for, potatoes and tomatoes, The Italians have the Peruvians to thank for tomatoes. It's crazy. So that's something we work with. We volunteer a little bit of time with locals, and we're just fascinated by the amazing food diversity that Peruvian campesinos can grow. And we want to be part of conserving the food diversity for the future, when it seems to be that food diversity is only reducing as we give up and lose and certain crops. And there's literal crop extinctions in areas where people may just turn to farming completely monocultures, or at least a drastic reduction in diversity. So I think it's going to be this genetic bank and resource that we're going to need in the future, and we want to protect as much of that diversity for the survival, but also the enjoyment of people in the future. We don't thank food enough on our plates every day, and the amazing diversity we have, and this project can tie into protecting that and be maybe as one of your future amplifications when you start introducing new concepts. But it's going to be really exciting to have to see what diversity of crops are growing well in these systems, and what locals adopt and what they don't. And as climate changes, as conditions change, what's going to be the new resilient food system that we can help create.
Yeah. When you have limited production space, you really need to find out, like you're saying, what crops yield the maximum nutrient rich benefit, and which ones play well together, with each other. So in the beginning, it's a unique problem because I have a seed bank and we're starting from zero, right? In the future, you already have a thriving greenhouse, and you're introducing something new. You're maybe taking something out. It's just modifying. It would be more like being a mechanic on a car, working on the engine while you're driving it down the road. But in the beginning, we're starting from a dead stop. So we're terminating everything. And what works and what doesn't. We're going to run with that.
Yeah, there's a little spin-off idea that's very connected to that. There's a American gentleman from the Midwest called Mark Shepard, very well known, very well publicized permaculturalist, I guess. He's experimented a lot with his approach is STUN, S-T-U-N, strategic total utter neglect. And so these approaches is just plant high diversity, just try everything you can. If more than half die, that's fantastic, because it leaves all the strongest, the best suited individuals and genetics to survive. And then you collect seed from that. You just keep playing with an evolutionary process, really.
Say that again, Callum. Strategic.
Strategic total utter neglect.
Excellent. I love it.
And the foundation principle is, it's just he's like, hell, I'll plant twice the density I can, just throw it in, and he's just putting tree crops in and things. And he's like, oh, if half die from disease, that's fantastic.
Right.
Because it thins out, it proves that the strong ones still there, and they're producing, it might be a good amount of food or seed, nuts, whatever.
So
he'll take the genetics from the survivors and keep proliferating those, and he's creating land races in those areas.
Right.
They're proven to require very, very little inputs.
So to interject, that is a bit of the Gardeners of Eden concept, is guiding nature in a direction, but not so heavily handed that you're creating selectively bred crops. You're creating land races. A land race is something that develops over decades or centuries as sort of the plants that survive of a particular crop. So sort of guiding nature with a very light touch and pushing it in a direction, but not putting in so many inputs that you have to constantly watch it, but just putting in enough inputs, sowing enough seeds that you find the genetics that survive on their own, and that makes it easier for us in the very, very long term. In the short term, it doesn't benefit us with massive profit or anything like that, but in the long term, it benefits us and our community. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Say it one more time. Stun.
Stun. Strategic, total, utter neglect.
Okay. Great. That's
and
great.
I think in the beginning it was stun, but it was sheer, total, utter neglect. He didn't know what he was doing. He was like, just see what happens. And then after that, he's like, no, it was strategic. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
And in hindsight, it really did become quite a strategic move. So decades on, he has a totally different gene bank.
Yeah.
People on his farm that he really doesn't need to do anything for. You really are carrying on the legacy and the torch, so to speak, for the Quechua community and the Inca history and the prehistory of the human journey, which is carrying plants, seeds, cultivars, changing, manipulating things in our own way. That's the beauty of taking on a project in food production where you are you're going to be experimenting with these things, and that's pretty exciting. And you're in the land of the Quechua, who have done so much for us all already. So
Cody
that'd be great to. Yeah.
Cody has integrated himself more than any other gringo I know. So guys,
that's a compliment.
Do we need 15 minutes more, or should we wrap it up here?
There was one more thing that
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to hit on.
Talk,
and
man.
I can't remember what it is now.
We can always.
It's so interesting.
We can always do part two.
Bring it up.
Yeah, I feel satisfied. The main thing that it all comes down to is the geothermal.
Yes.
And once you get that temperature stable, like I said, it's like a blank palette, and you can do a lot of things. And then I believe that from what I'm seeing, that water is going to become an issue. So on the water end, rainwater collection off the roof, and then utilizing that multi-use. Not just, a lot of times, you spend all this effort collecting rainwater, and then you just dump it on the ground.
Yep.
That's cool. But can we flush our toilets on the way? Can we do something else? Can we do a little hydroelectric going in the difference? So with the thermal, the 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit is the threshold, is the bottom. It should never dip below that because of the geothermal tubes.
That's amazing.
However, with the composting, thermophilic composting, and other things, I've learned that as far as holding as solar batteries, I mean, I'm not a big fan of batteries themselves because there's better ways to do it.
Sure.
But holding the energy of the sun, there's levels of things that do it more efficiently. And the highest is water. Water can be like a solar battery. So with the rainwater collection, imagine above ground swimming pools on ground level. And so you have this source of water that's not being stored outside the greenhouse. It's inside the greenhouse. So all day long, the sun is charging that water with energy, and during the night it radiates. We'll take that one step further. If we have ram pumps and have an ability to pump water up in the air for free, use that same pressure input coming out of the water reservoir to activate the ram pump to pump it up in the air, run it all, and paint the tubing black, of course, to attract the heat of the sun, run it all the way down at the highest point of the roof where the heat is collected, run it all the way down, turn it, come all the way back, and then drop it into that same above ground pool type water reservoir with the geomembrane. And then you're solar heating that water all day long, and it's radiating at night as well.
Yeah.
And then with that differential, with the fall, it's very easy just to put a hydroelectric, wheel on that and take advantage of that falling water. And you just circulating that same water all day long. Recharge your batteries.
I've used a thermal camera to take some footage of water tanks at night, and it surprised me so much. You could see this giant block of high temperature mass in the bottom of the tank, and half of it actually at that time the tank was half empty, so the top half was just air. The bottom half was just a solid block of heat, and this was at midnight. So it showed very physically, very, very obviously how much temperature is held in the water into the middle of the night as well. Probably continued into the early hours of the morning too. So for anyone who doesn't know, like, how much are we talking? How much heating are we talking? Like, water's an incredible heat bank, isn't it? Heat battery.
Is. It's an amazing, and having the difference in height. There's multiple heights in the greenhouse, and so you have opportunity to take advantage of the gravity forces, the kinetic energy, the thermal force. I mean, there's a lot to play with there. So I imagine it'll take a lifetime. And I don't have, like I'm saying, it's not a model that has to be overcomplicated. It's just my nature, and I want to try to do everything that's possible and play with it all.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, just that geothermal tube is enough. Where they can plant crops that they're familiar with. Now we can provide a seed bank that is acclimatized, that has foreign, biodiverse species. But at the end of the day, they're farmers, and I can't tell them how to farm. But we can introduce a greenhouse that gives them an opportunity to take farming to a whole new level. And it doesn't have to be things that they're not familiar with,
Yeah, totally. I think it's great. They already are familiar with greenhouses, so it's optimistic that they're gonna really like the concept. And when you get them in there, you get them experiencing this warm air coming out of the mountain.
I know.
It's
well, it's probably going to end up being. It's probably going to end up spreading to their living quarters. If I know them, right? I can see in the beginning people living inside the greenhouse, but that same geothermal, technology. And so when you're using it as an air conditioner, like in the Earthships, opening that skylight, all the hot air immediately goes out and draws that 15 degrees cool air into the house. But when we're using a heating, this is the age-old problem. You need fresh air. And you can get an overabundance of oxygen in there, and you need fresh air to be introduced. But you just can't go opening skylights and doors and windows and stuff when it's cold, when it's just way too cold outside. So this is a way to introduce fresh air from the outside into the greenhouse without compromising the integrity of the temperature. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So, so having said that, we can't open the skylight and let our hot air out if that's our purpose. So with this, we will need some low voltage fans to push that air from the outside or pull, however you want to come at it.
Right.
So there is some solar, there's some battery. That's why the hydroelectric will help offset the usage of the battery, when we have rainy season or we don't have sun.
And I remember you telling me about one thing that amazed me about this project is the amount of inputs were so tiny, and the amount of output of food and crops, animal products was so vast, is what fascinated me so much about it. But there are, you could sort of supercharge this system by adding some inputs like a simple solar panel, or even the ram pumps work upon basically gravity or pressure systems. But there is ways to add a bit more to get a bit more out of it. If these people want to, if the Quechuas want to, and they're very pragmatic, they're very intelligent, they're always interested in supporting their families and supporting their communities in a larger capacity. So I think that's really great is you sort of have a graduated scale of what can be done, or it can be quite simple. So it's from very simple to very, not very complex, but to moderately complex. And I think that's a really great way of going about things. And it just depends on what an individual wants to do with their own system. So it's a model that can work for many different people. And I think that's a really great thing.
Democratic.
Yeah.
I remember.
There you go.
Something I was thinking of earlier is one day it came to me, because it is a closed system, all under one roof, it is much like the human body. So the biogas is methane, right? So that's your digestive system. And then the ram pumps and the water and the rainwater and the gravity-fed drip lines and everything, that's the circulatory system, right? The geothermal tubes is your respiratory system. Like you have almost like a model of a human body that has the same needs. We need oxygen, we need waste elimination, we need respiration, we need circulatory. It's essentially what it is.
Excellent.
It's biomimicry, you could say.
It is biomimicry.
Mimicking biological and evolutionary processes. Yep.
It's like a bubble. I think when it's all said and done, you could colonize Mars.
There you go.
I'm optimistic about it, Cody. I reckon the next like generation 12 of this project or something will be there.
Well, that's why originally I referred to as a cyclic biosphere. I mean, that was sort of my 2-word summary of what this system is. And man, it's super exciting.
Yeah.
It's super, the future's exciting.
Environment. You're creating your own environment, everything benefits from being in close proximity with other things, such as, with eggs. You can tell when an egg is nutrient rich, by the color of the yolk, by the thickness of the shell. And so poultry that gets a lot of greens, they're getting the cuttings, they're getting this duckweed, they're getting, access to a really nutrient rich diet. It just makes their eggs nutrient rich. I mean, we are what we eat. So everything that is in that system, that is working in that system, is going to benefit from the humans all the way down to the worms.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys. This has been interesting.
So
it's been great.
This has been I'm really proud of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. You guys made me hopeful for the future. So I have sort of a saying, I don't know if it's mine or if I heard it somewhere, but we're going to save this planet or die trying. And that's a fact.
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later, we're going to save this planet or die trying. And more than the planet, we're going to save the biosphere or die trying, because humans are so... it's impossible to separate ourselves from the biosphere. And if we pretend that, what are we going to do? Like live in nuclear-powered bunkers underground after we destroy the entire planet? That's not the kind of life I want to live. That's not the kind of life I'd want my great-great-grandchildren to live. And when I hear about ideas from Cody and from Callum, I'm hopeful that we will solve the problems that humanity has mostly created for ourselves and for the biosphere. And I'm thrilled, because usually when I hear about environmental problems, I'm extremely depressed. But if we focus on the problems constantly, we all know, intelligent people know that the problems exist. Well, we've got to find solutions. And they're step-by-step solutions. We're never going to fix the planet in a snap of the fingers. Oh, there's one thing. Maybe fusion or fission, I can't remember. That could help, right? But mostly it's going to be individuals and communities of people figuring out how to preserve the biosphere and their communities.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you guys being here. I want to do a part 2 to this, because we have so much more to talk about. Callum, how's all those chickens in the background? parrots.
They're not chickens. They're all the native birds.
I'm just kidding.
Getting closer.
I'm just kidding. But let's do a part 2. Yeah. This has been amazing. If you guys want to go for another 30 minutes, you're welcome to. But if you think we should wrap it up now, I think we should save it for part 2.
I'm good. I got some turkeys and ham, so I was going to start smoking here.
Okay.
We'll flash forward into the future where we do part 2, where we'll check in on the progress. And I think on top of all that, I think it's really good to just encourage everyone to get involved in any way they want to. It's a really, I think it's a really exciting space. What us three are involved in our own ways. It's solutions oriented. It's pragmatic. It's practical. You know, it's challenging, yes, but it's mobilizing too. There's people doing some amazing work out there, and so if you want to be involved, just do something about it. Whether that's donate or it's just send a comment and ask a question, ask Cody something. Join EthnoCO. You know, free. It's free. You know, you can link yourself with all kinds of information and networking and contacts there. Just join it and join us and be part of it.
We are interested in anybody that is hopeful for saving this planet. And you know, in a way, I want to create an EthnoCO army, not a army of violence, but an army that is dedicated to saving this planet. And little by little, we can do that. And there's plenty of organizations besides EthnoCO that are doing that. But we need everyone we can get. So please comment, donate, whatever it is. There'll be a link in the description to Cody's GoFundMe because his project is excellent. It is righteous. It is true. And nobody can do it on their own. So anyway, thank you guys. I'll shut up. Go to my website, www.ethnoco.com. That's ETHNOCO.com, and I'll let Cody do his outro.
Thanks, guys. So we've all known each other for years, and I appreciate your integrity, both of you. And I think that you know, I'm a little bit of maybe on a different generation. I turned 46, and you know, my dad is a tough old character, but he taught me really the only thing you have in this life is your good name, you know, and your handshake. And so I appreciate you guys. I think this has been super beneficial, and I know that we're 100% committed to doing what we're doing, and it has taken on a life of its own.
Yep.
And I appreciate that the right people are coming. We're not just self-promoting and hey, we're so busy doing what we're doing. I don't really have time to you know, try to build a fan base. So that's just not me. It's not my personality. But
we can't do it alone.
You guys, it's very true, and I'm learning that. And I just, you know, I remember the night that I had on both screens all of the plane tickets to go to the United States and to be a truck driver and drive trucks for 2 years to save money to come back to do this. And I said, let me sleep on it one more night. That very next morning, I got a phone call with a donator that just said, hey, we're doing this. So it happened to be the greenhouse that I toured in Idaho. And he said, I want to help. So
I said I was going to shut up, but I lied. Cody told me the same thing. He told me about his project, and he told me, and we're going to open the next podcast with Cody with this. He told me, I don't have enough money. I've got to go to U.S. and do this. Make money. I've got to be a truck driver. I said, Cody, we don't need truck drivers. We got plenty of truck drivers. We need somebody like you that is going to help save this planet. So please reconsider, and let's look for the funds elsewhere. And I want you to do this thing, man. I need you. The planet needs you to do this thing. So now I'm going to shut up. Callum, you have the last...
That's why we have friends. I appreciate you saying that. I just, you know, I was raised where you don't ask anyone to do for yourself what you can do for yourself.
Well,
right?
you're only trying to do it for the planet.
Into my dreams. Like that, it doesn't resonate with me. I'll donate and I'll invest in my own dreams, and then when it's successful, people can come alongside and say, "Wow, we need more of that." So that was our mentality. And then this
That's fair.
this generous donation just fell out of the sky, unsolicited, unasked for. And so I'm looking for more. I'm not being hocus pocus, but I'm looking for more of those doors to open organically.
Yeah.
People that say this is someone we trust and this is a project we believe in, and I think people need to see it. So
Sure.
I've been reticent to talk about it. I haven't been. It's kind of been like a secret, really, because I want to publish results.
Well,
not
that's
you
fair,
know,
and that's very noble. But I'm gonna ask for you, all right? So.
So that's awesome.
Sometimes it's forced upon you.
Yeah.
Let's go to good use. Because in this first community, the community of Kai Kai, I love the definition of Kai Kai. It's kind of my own definition. It means here and now. It's like the present moment, Kai Kai. And so that's the name of the community where we have acquired land. We have the funds to build the first one. And then we might be living in a teepee or something like that to be on the property until we can get a little house out of it. But I'm excited. We just need to get through the rainy season.
I'm excited. I'm excited too, man. Callum, you have the last word, and then we're gonna shut the podcast down for this episode.
So April 2023, is that right, Cody? That you'll be hoping
April
dry season to allow you to break ground or make next moves.
Yeah, we're doing some things such as fencing and some dirt work and some things through the rainy season. But the main part of the bulk of the excavation, yes, in April, May. Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's great.
So,
it sounds from years ago when I was there, it seems like April's the very start, the very early
Dry season.
So you should
we can handle it,
hopefully.
And of course, the seasons are kind of wacky.
Months to work.
Yeah, we want to get as much done during that dry season, and we can handle a little bit of rain. But you know that January, February, it's just too much. We end up with a swimming pool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So last comments.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. We're going to be back with part 2. Absolutely, with Cody. We haven't talked about biogas extensively. We haven't talked about a number of the systems.
I'm going to convert my car to run on it.
Exactly. We haven't talked about the species of fish necessarily that may be in the greenhouses. I like to call it the Hatun greenhouse, which means the great or the grand, the big bad greenhouse. Bad in a good way. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and we're gonna keep doing these, and I think we're gonna do them more frequently. Anyway, thank you guys. I'm not cutting you off. You got anything else?
That's fine.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thanks,
I'm gonna call both of you back in a
Thanks,
second.
Thanks, Callum.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.